You've probably heard the term mind virus before and thought it was some overly online red pill nonsense, but ideas really do spread like viruses. And like viruses, sometimes they stick around. Did you know that 8% of your DNA is actually made up of viruses? Fun little fact. Anyway, your mind is no different. Some viruses help you, others not so much. Not so much. In this video, I'm going to tell you what a mind virus is, how they work, and how you can learn to spot them. Plus, we will talk about an often maligned movie that depicts mind viruses perfectly. Who maligned this movie? Me. I maligned it when it first came out, but it's actually really good. And it has been proven right by history. So I was dead wrong. Anyway, if you've seen my Wetiko or my groupthink videos, you probably already know how to spot the patterns, but this video goes a lot deeper than that. And honestly, studying mind viruses once or twice does not make you immune. It's a continuous process. You have to keep working on it. Just like if you eat in 2015, you still got to eat now. These mind viruses are almost unavoidable. Now, definition of a mind virus. A lot of people first heard the term from Elon Musk when he described the woke mind virus. And look, just because you hate Elon Musk doesn't mean that you shouldn't familiarize yourself with the term, because it's actually a very useful concept to have. And yes, I have had people criticizing me in the comments because I use the term mind virus and Elon Musk used the term mind virus. So I guess we can't use it anymore. For people like this, I want to send a search and rescue team after their common sense. Like, what are you talking about? A mind virus is an infectious idea that takes up home in people's mind and it replicates in that host mind. Unlike a physical virus that consists of DNA and RNA, a mind virus is spread through language, through words, through pictures, and also memes. It's also spread through memes. Pepe is a meme that is a mind virus, but not all memes are mind viruses. It's just an example. Pepe is an example. Meme in the original sense of the word was coined by Richard Dawkins in 1976. It is a unit of cultural transmission or a unit of imitation. Just as genes propagate themselves in the gene pool by leaping from body to body via sperm or egg, so memes propagate themselves in the meme pool by leaping from brain to brain via a process which, in the broad sense, can be called imitation. And that's kind of how we learn from each other. It's a very natural process that describes almost everything. And what we're talking about, what we are concerned about, is not everything. We're talking about the dangerous mind viruses here, the ones that take over people's lives, take over society. Mind viruses are so ubiquitous in our culture, in how humans create culture, that I think it's better to describe them as mind cancers. These are mind cancers. A cancer is cell replication that gets out of hand. It turns deadly. Mind cancers are mind viruses that have metastasized. It's similar to how cults are groups that have become toxic. Not every group is a cult. Not every culture is a cult, no matter what cult leaders try to tell you. A cult is a cancerous group. Mind viruses themselves are actually normal, as Dawkins points out. It's when mind viruses become mind cancers that we actually have to worry. And we are seeing this happen in real time. Interesting times we live in. And can I just say that I feel I'm running out of runway with these biological analogies? Cancer and viruses, these are just heuristics. It's to help us learn. This isn't a biology heavy video. I'm actually going to leave it all behind right now. Oh, I promised to tell you about that movie that described mind viruses perfectly. It is Pontypool. Pontypool is a zombie movie. It stars Stephen McHattie, and spoiler alert, the zombie virus, it spreads through words. Now, at the time, I thought it was super lame. I was also very young. It came out in 2008, and this was before the spread of hashtags and social media and all this toxicity we're seeing online. It was actually really ahead of its time. Now, these things work kind of like a spell on the mental plane. I cast a spell on you. It hijacks a person's reasoning and their body, and it kind of uses them in service to the idea. Also, that is how nations get young men to fight and die for them as soldiers. The soldier's physical body now becomes in service to the larger organism, which is the state. So hijacking people's bodies to serve an idea is exactly how the rest of society works. The problem is when it becomes toxic. That's when we have to stop it. The most extreme example of this is how cults Cults actually demand the followers that they volunteer, they give their time, their skill, their money, sometimes their bodies for the cause, for the leader. Now, for a mind virus, unlike a cult, there doesn't have to be a physical leader per se. The idea itself is the leader. And we are coming up on a time where avatars can be the leader too. So that's interesting. Now, of course, you're going to see opportunistic people take the reins of a mind virus if they see that there's nobody else in the leadership position. I've used the example of Christianity as a mind virus with a lot of positive potential, and it has been positive in a lot of people's lives. But that doesn't mean that false prophets don't come out and say that they represent Christianity and use Christianity for their own selfish needs. David Koresh is an example of that. Now, Dawkins is very critical of Roman Catholicism as a harmful mind virus. Now, recently, he's sort of tempered his criticism of Christianity because we see as a society that without Christianity, that can lead to a lot of science denial. We thought it would lead to embracing the science, but somehow the opposite has happened. Now, that is a video in itself. So Dawkins has acknowledged that there has to be some kind of base, some sort of foundation for a culture, and some foundations are better than others. And you know what? He's allowed to evolve. His opinion is allowed to evolve on this topic. Now, Dawkins points out very clearly that science itself is not a mind virus because it can be tested. This can be tested. Now, why then can't we use science as the foundation for a stable society like in Star Trek? Shouldn't we be able to do that? I don't know. Trust the science people. Do you remember during the transmania and the COVID mania, the trust the science people, they would scream, trust the science at you. And then they would offer up very shoddy science. And if you question it, they basically outed you from the group. Pseudoscience became weaponized as a mind virus. It wasn't real science. And it got past people's bullshit radar because people let their guards down when someone says science. It was able to sneak into people's minds in the same way that they would trust actual scientific facts. Trust the science has been eroded, unfortunately. And now we are in a very, very dark place because they abused the word science. So science is not a mind virus, and we can't seem to have a science-based society. At least the last time we tried, it failed. It seems like we need some sort of mind viruses, that people actually need to think irrationally for us to have order. So there needs to be mental disorder for there to be order. Okay. Just accept it. Just accept it. It's like quantum physics. You ever have to be explaining quantum physics and you're like, huh? And they're just like, just accept it. This is what happens experimentally. Okay. So where do mind viruses show up? They show up everywhere. Everywhere! First and foremost, you learn the memes of your culture before you even go to school. You learn a language which consists of many hundreds and then thousands of different memes, words. Language is so weird. Watching a kid go from not being able to understand anything to be able to speak is just nuts. And then they learn to communicate through like squiggly lines on a piece of paper. And it's somebody talking to them through space and time. I can leave a note for my kid. Check out that video on the Black Iron Prison. I know it's from a few years ago, but it's still very useful. Philip K. Dick uses the Black Iron Prison metaphor for our culture, and according to him, this goes back to Rome. It does if you understand etymology, because Latin is the foundation on which our language sits, even though it's very different. It's been a few thousand years. Then, in addition to that, having a classical education meant that you were educated in a way that reinforced classical culture, so Greece and Rome. It is the scaffolding that our mental model of the world is based on, and we inherit that mental model from our parents. And they got it from their parents and so on. So these ideas are transmitted. If you are adopted by a family in Japan, you'll have a completely different Black Iron Prison, because they transmit different ideas to their children, even if you have the same DNA now. This is the quote from Philip K. Dick. Once, in a cheap science fiction novel, Fat had come across a perfect description of the Black Iron Prison, but set in the far future. So, if you superimposed the past, ancient Rome, over the present, California in the 20th century, and superimposed the far future world of the Android Crimea River over that, you got the empire as the supra or trans-temporal constant. Everyone who had ever lived was literally surrounded by the iron walls of the prison. They were all inside of it, and none of them knew it. Philip K. Dick, Vallis. Language itself is a code. Now, this is not a video on language, but I will make one shortly because it is fascinating. So we personally construct the next floor of the Black Iron prison for our children. Yes, we inherit the structure from our parents, but we actively rebuild it every generation. So raising a kid is like spawning a new character into this world. I look at my son and I think I could just fill his head with so much bullshit, the same bullshit that my mom filled my head with, but I won't because I know better. So parents, they're the first wave of introduction for these mind viruses. And as Dawkins points out in this 1991 essay, it's called Viruses and the Mind. Most people just take after their parents in terms of worldview, religion, and lifestyle. Some, of course, they do break out, but most of us just return to home base. And they have studied this through sociology a lot. And that is great if you've had good parents, but what if we didn't? Then you have to work on actively repairing the damage that they caused. And you got to work on it. These people, they transmit these toxic ideas to their children. Some parents, they teach their children to disrespect men or women. And they think, how are these people supposed to have stable marriages later on in life? Like, you're sabotaging them. You need to stop the bullshit from crossing the generation gap. If you're going to use the human centipede example, the human centipede metaphor, we need to educate our kids. You need to take your lips off of the last generation's rear end and feed your kids something that will help them. I'm sorry that you're stuck in this human centipede, but don't put it off on them. I know that's vulgar, but it's actually a really good metaphor for how some of these people are raising kids out here. And if you don't know what the human centipede is, you don't need to. You don't need to. I actually apologize for bringing it up. I saw a yard sign and it said, hate is a virus. Stop Asian hate. And I'm like, is hate a virus? And it got me to thinking. I'm thinking, in a lot of ways, it absolutely is. Hate is a virus. And I don't come from that school of thought that says racism or hate is in any way unnatural. But look, fire is natural and arsonists still exist. Taking natural processes and natural urges and folding them into our current complex society, which is not necessarily natural, that gives rise to many harmful mind viruses like hate. And I do think a lot of the racism that we are seeing in the world comes from parents, but it can also be transmitted via friend groups and, of course, Andrew Tate. And then you leave your parents' home and you go to school and you learn so many more ideas. Some of them are correct. Math and science, these follow a process. Like, as long as you're teaching correct math and science, it's hard to mess this up. But when you get into history and social sciences, a lot of this can be propaganda. A lot of this can be mind viruses. There's so much room for interpretation there. Interpretation. Plus, of course, you have pseudoscience, which has been passed off as science in school, outside of school, on the internet, of course. And when something is passed off as science, it becomes very difficult to detect that it is a mind virus, that it is a cancerous idea. The trick that often gets played with pseudoscience is that the person spreading it will bombard you with facts. And they claim that it's true, but you don't have a PhD. How are you supposed to argue with this? So they bombard you with facts and you sort of just shut down your brain and think, well, they know what they're talking about. They have so many facts. We see it online all the time. It used to be on YouTube a lot with those 3-hour documentaries, which we had discussed. This is cancerous ideas. This is opinions and propaganda disguised as science. Examples of mind viruses disguised as science from history, they include phrenology, the skull, judging people by their skull, and race science. That used to be a huge thing. Now, with social media and the internet, these mind viruses show up everywhere, literally everywhere. The influencer niches are different types of mind viruses, and they are spread through hashtags. Oftentimes, we see them nested, or you see many different niches that come from a single core idea. Like beauty Beauty has spawned many types of influencers, from makeup to hair to fashion, all around the core belief that we should be super, super hot. Now, I agree, you should be as hot as your genetics and your patience will allow. But define hot. Define it. You could go the other way and you could beauty max through natural processes by maximizing your natural beauty, but you are still serving the core idea of hotness, the goddess of female beauty. You still sacrifice at her altar, whether you go natural or you go artificial, and she will take over your life. She will take over your whole life. So now we get into the idea that mind viruses, are they these infectious thoughts? Or are they some kind of supernatural entity that has been spread to you? This is my favorite part of the mind virus discussion because the ancestors, our ancestors, had a vocabulary to deal with these things. And since we have dropped religion, we no longer have that vocabulary. For example, it might say porn brain, whereas they may have said that so-and-so is being attacked by the demon Lilith, or whatever kind of sexual demon they have in that particular culture. We know some of the science here, so we know what is going on somewhat. However, if we think of these modern psychic illnesses as demons or as egregores, they are psychic entities that are formed by collective, concentrated mental energy. If we think of them as demons or egregores, that will give you more tools in overcoming this. So what works for you? Whatever works for you. Different types of mind viruses. Not all mind viruses are created equal. They don't even form in the same way. Yes, people deliberately make mind viruses and release them on the population like some kind of mental Wuhan lab. Let's touch on deliberately designed viruses, mind viruses. This could be a whole video, but I'll give you a quick warning. Marketing is real. Social marketing is a field of research that seeks to mold society by advertising different ideas and different movements. They advertise these things as beneficial, just like you would advertise lipstick or bug spray. And who is doing this to us? Well, first and foremost, our enemies. They're trying to undermine us as a form of psychological warfare. This man called Yuri Bezmenov, he warned us that the Soviets were doing this. He warned us like 30 years ago, and we know from recent intelligence reports that they have only gotten better. I will make a video on it, but it's not this video. Who else is doing this? 4chan. 4chan does such a great job that I don't even know what is real and what is a troll anymore. You remember QAnon? HBO did a really good documentary on QAnon. That came out of 4chan. Now, who else is doing this? Our colleges and universities. Woke came out of the universities. I remember learning about it back then. And then it spread through the public through techniques that were perfected through advertising. Straight up advertising. But also, remember, not all mind viruses are bad or entirely bad. You can create and spread a very positive mind virus. Now, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you think that, the Hallmark or whatever did this when they spread the idea of Santa Claus, who represents the spirit of giving. If you're woke, you'll say that woke is essentially a positive mind virus. And I do think that the essence of anti-racism is positive because I like not having crosses burned on my lawn. I think that is a good thing. Okay, then we have naturally evolving mind viruses. And don't make this mistake that thinking that humans are some orderly, rational species where if something terrible happens, it was planned from on top. That is not true. We are goofy ass monkeys with thumbs. Our minds, they often glitch out, and some of these mind viruses, some of these mind cancers can get very, very deadly. I would lump hysterias into this category. Do you remember that video I did on Leroy, New York? That was a very famous mass hysteria incident. Mass hysteria, they often spread through female social groups, and they do so in a fascinating way. Fascinating. Girls see other girls having these symptoms, and they manifest the same symptoms, often physical symptoms. This is what happened in Leroy, New York. These girls, they had tics, they had seizures. The people thought there was something wrong with the environment, something wrong with the water, but it was a mass hysteria. Salem, was similar. A similar thing happened in Salem, Massachusetts. In both cases, adults gave credence to their daughters' testimonies, and that's when it really got out of hand, especially Salem. Now, mass hysteria is to mind viruses what rabies is to physical viruses. It'll leave you foaming at the mouth, literally. So how do mind viruses work? Well, they hijack your emotions. They turn you, a thinking, feeling, emoting person, into a tool to incubate and spread the virus. They rewire your previous drives, the fears, the desires, and they turn them into pathways for the virus to further mutate. For example, you had a hard childhood? Not you, but someone had a hard childhood. Well, the problem must be feminism. You're like, how? I think the problem was my emotionally distant father who was also abusive. No, you're wrong. No, but you're right. But what really happened was that your emotionally distant abusive father left your psychic immune system weak so that one day someone could come and say that all of your life's frustrations can be explained away with this new worldview, that women are the problem. Women are not the problem. Now, here's where we are all especially at risk. The infection point for a mind virus is often a slogan or a hashtag. We covered this in How They Brainwash You. That video, How They Brainwash You. Check out that video. We talk about slogans in that video. We went over The Banality of Evil by Hannah Arendt. It's about Adolf Eichmann, who was a pencil pusher for the Nazis. He did a lot of the paperwork for the Holocaust. Ugh, I know. When pressed about his ideology, he couldn't actually explain it. He just fell back on these slogans. And slogans are very powerful. That's why marketers use them. We live in this age of hashtags too, which are akin to slogans. And a good hashtag will go viral. So it will reward wordplay, not the quality of the idea. Can we do away with hashtags? We can't, because that's how we sort content. But the problem is that they put the viewer in this self-reinforcing rabbit hole. You go further and further down this hashtag. And influencers use that hashtag to get your attention. And so they become more and more extreme because they want your attention. Attention-based economy. Now, dangerous mind viruses, or these mind cancers, they actually hijack our emotions and, more importantly, our deepest fears. Now, it's funny, not funny, haha, but it's funny because the algorithm can spot your deepest insecurities by seeing which videos you linger over longer, and it only has to be a microsecond. Your buried fear of not reproducing can lead you into a rabbit hole of beauty or the manosphere. One bad story about a racial group, that can lead you into racial supremacy content. And you may never have met a person of that group before, or no one of that group has ever harmed you in real life. The fear of the medical industry manipulating you, which does happen, can lead you to endorse RFK for president, and before you know it, you're full-blown MAGA. Hate your parents? Well, there's a hashtag for that too. Soon we'll all hate the boomers. And an argument can be made. I am just saying. Now, that's all well and good, but how do you spot if you have one? Richard Dawkins said this. I'm going to put this on the screen, but obviously I'm not going to read this whole block of text. You can pause it and read the whole thing. I'm just going to summarize the important points here. Like computer viruses, successful mind viruses will tend to be hard for their victims to detect. If you are the victim of one, the chances are that you won't know it and may even vigorously deny it. 1. The patient typically finds himself impelled by some deep inner conviction that something is true or right or virtuous, a conviction that doesn't seem to owe anything to evidence or reason, but which, nevertheless, he feels as totally compelling and convincing. We doctors refer to such a belief as faith. 2. Patients typically make a positive virtue of faith's being strong and unshakable, in spite of not being based upon evidence. Indeed, they may feel that the less evidence there is, the more virtuous the belief is. This paradoxical idea that lack of evidence is a positive virtue where faith is concerned has something of the quality of a program that is self-sustaining because it is self-referential. Once the proposition is believed, it automatically undermines opposition to itself. 3. A related symptom, which a faith sufferer may also present, is the conviction that mystery per se is a good thing. It is not a virtue to solve mysteries. Rather, we should enjoy them, even revel in their insolubility. Now, Dawkins explains the mystery point by quoting from a rabbi whose job it is to trace back whether food is kosher. This is from a 1991 article in The Guardian, I believe. When asked, what is the point of this, the rabbi says, that most of the kashrut laws are divine ordinances without reason given is 100% the point. It is very easy not to murder people, very easy. It is a little bit harder not to steal because one is tempted occasionally. So that is no great proof that I believe in God or am fulfilling his will. But if he tells me not to have a cup of coffee with milk in it with my mincemeats or pieces at lunchtime, that is a test. The only reason I am doing that is because I have been told to do so. It is something very difficult. All right. But look, if you follow any religion, you know that there is some degree of faith involved. Did Jesus really get up on the third day and walk around? That's an essential part of Christianity. Believing that is essential to Christianity. How else can you know if you are infected with a mind virus? Well, can you make cogent arguments or do you just repeat slogans? If someone asks you about a topic and you are passionate about this topic, can you explain it to them? Or do you just shout catchphrases at them? Magical thinking is actually key here because for mind viruses, you have to yada, yada, yada a lot of the details. Like, does that make any sense? Yada, 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 sure, whatever. Because the facts often do not support the idea. Now, are we all at risk? Is everybody at risk? Yes, but some of us are more at risk than others. What factors make a person more at risk for falling for mind viruses is not having a fixed belief system. And note, that belief system might also be a mind virus. Still, some mind viruses serve you better than others. Roman Catholicism, for example, that was the mind virus that Richard Dawkins used. But plenty of Roman Catholics lived and died happy and fulfilled lives. If you want to bow to this guy in a gold hat who they say is God's representative on earth, fine. You do you. You just shovel your driveway in the winter and we won't have any problems. Thanks. Now, those same people, they would laugh at cults. They would laugh at Jim Jones. They would laugh at Heaven's Gate. They call them a bunch of clowns. Meanwhile, they have to say that this cracker and juice is the body and blood of Christ. It's wine. It's not juice. Grape drink. No, it's wine. I love it. Just get you a positive mind virus. You got to have one. Just get you a positive one. I love these people who are buying these positivity posters at Hobby Lobby about family and friends. Whatever builds a stronger home life for you, that's great. I go to the mat for these live, laugh, love aunties. I tease them all the time, but they get it in a way that a lot of us do not. Now, the second way to build an immunity is to familiarize yourself with how these things are spread. So check out my video on groupthink, the ones on propaganda, on intuition, on Wetiko, on online radicalization. Also, watch Mad Men. I know that sounds crazy, but that show is about the rise of advertising in the 60s and 70s. So their pitches actually are a glimpse into social manipulation. And yes, you can read books on social marketing and sales. It's all a pitch. People are trying to sell you an idea, and it's whether or not you are buying. Now, remember that the goal is not to be virus-free. That's nearly impossible. It's to avoid having these cancers. And I hate to break it to you, but these things are kind of accelerating because our minds are more interconnected with the phone, with social media. However, I'm really interested to see how things will work with people being fragmented in their own little online worlds. That's fascinating to me. Like, there is this push and pull of how these ideas are trying to recruit new people versus these people just wanting to watch cat videos and zone out. I am on the side of cat videos here. I think the most mentally well people are the ones drinking pumpkin spice lattes and watching The Bachelor. Now, people try to malign NPCs. They say it's the worst thing in the world to be an NPC. But look, the goal of a cult leader and for someone pitching these mind viruses is to get you to open your mind and accept this groundbreaking new idea. Well, what is this new idea? It's the idea they're trying to sell you, of course. I'm here to tell you, don't do it. Get you a caramel frappuccino and enjoy Mamma Mia 4. Mamma Mia in space. It might be fantastic. Live, laugh, love, girl. Anyway, That's my opinion on it. What do you think? Are NPCs who are laughing at gag reels, are they the real winner in this mind virus game? Looking back on the recent past, which we have all lived through, which stories, which movements, which ideologies do you think were mind viruses? Definitely check out that video on mass hysteria in Leroy, New York. It was fascinating, fascinating. Oh yeah, like, share, and subscribe. And join my Patreon. I talk about Marty, the creepy googly-eyed robot on that. That was weird. Oh, Stop and Shop. What happened to you? All right, I'll see you next week. Bye.